What's up, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Ryan Ripken Show. We are live at 5, and speaking of Ryan Ripken, I just had to send him the link. So that's on me, Ryan, if you're watching. That's on me. But we are back today. I am Zach Bollinger. I'm, I guess, your host for the moment. Ryan will be joining us in just a few minutes as we go through really just today's news in baseball, the main one being the Boston Red Sox have acquired Sonny Gray from the St. Louis Cardinals. A lot of money going back to Boston. You get a top prospect for the Red Sox going back to St. Louis. We will dig into all of that and more in just a little bit. We will also be going over maybe some guys that are available and maybe the guys that are available that aren't being talked about that maybe the Orioles or another team could go after. A little who's next. But before we get into that, as always, have to shout out our friends at Merit Clubs. You know the deal. Merit Clubs, one of our closest sponsors throughout the show. So always great doing work with them. Appreciate them. And we will have more information on some Black Friday and cyber deals in the next few minutes later on in the show. But let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's talk about it. Earlier today, another one of those moves that when you see it, I'm not saying I was expecting this, but here it is. The Boston Red Sox receive Sonny Gray and cash. That cash is very important. Remember that. This cash is very important. That is $20 million that is being sent to the Boston Red Sox. $20 million of Sonny Gray's $35 million contract will be paid still by the St. Louis Cardinals. In return, the Cardinals receive Brandon Clark, who was the 5th overall prospect for the Boston Red Sox, and Richard Fitz. You all know his nickname. I'm not going to say it. You all know his nickname. But seen a lot of chatter about this, especially an Orioles division rival acquiring I'm not going to call him a frontline starter anymore. At one time, Sonny Gray probably was, he was a guy that you put the frontline starter tag on, but not necessarily after last year. So let's dig a little bit deeper into it. Sonny Gray is 36 years old. It's funny. I know people are upset a little bit that like, oh, why didn't the Orioles get this? The jokes that people would have made if the Orioles traded for a 36-year-old, they would be like, oh, classic Orioles in that. So I don't understand the outrage with that. But Sonny Gray, 36 years old. He is coming off a year in which he pitched to a 4.28 ERA with a 1.23 whip. He had the 39th best ERA of qualified pitchers in baseball, starters at least, and the 28th best whip. Listen, it was a down year for Sonny Gray. This was not his best year, coming off a year in 2024 when he had 3.84 ERA. That 2023 year with the Twins was absolutely incredible. That 2.79 ERA over 184 innings pitched. He was awesome. He was fantastic. Has slowly started to regress a little bit. I think he slowly is starting to regress because, hey, he's 36. But the one thing about Sonny Gray is his fastball's never been dominant. He's sat throughout his career around that 93. It's now down to 92. But it was never something that blew you away. Sonny Gray has always been a guy, even in this portion, the latter portion of his career, what makes him good is he knows how to pitch. He knows how to get guys out. He's not going to blow you away, but he's going to find a way, one, to walk away with some strikeouts back-to-back years, over 200 strikeouts, 201 exactly in 25, 203 in 2024. So it's still a guy that when you add to this Red Sox team that needed a starter, the Red Sox were another team like so many, let's just be honest, so many guys this year so many teams this year needed that, not necessarily maybe that ace, but they wanted to add a 2 or 3. So the Red Sox add on to Garrett Crochet, to Brian Bayo, to that staff. They add Sonny Gray. So it will be very interesting to kind of see how that changes maybe what the Red Sox are able to do, because a lot of people thought they would sign a starter. They end up trading for one. Maybe now they use that just abundance of talent in the outfield to go out there, as whether it's Sharon Duran, Wilyer Abreu, one of those two most likely. I've seen Masataka Yoshida. I don't know who trades for Yoshida with any value, to be honest with you. But Duran, Abreu, I would think one of them ends up being traded for maybe a starter, maybe a bullpen piece. Not sure, but they have to figure that out. But now they do add Sonny Gray. And really the biggest part to this is that $20 million, because when this first got announced, it came out about 25 minutes after the original announcement that the Red Sox were also receiving $20 million from this, because that first reaction was, this is a lot of money to be paying Sonny Gray, especially giving up your 5th best prospect plus Richard Fitz. It really didn't seem like a deal. It kind of left some head scratchers. You were like, okay, not sure if Sonny Gray is worth this at this point in his career. Then it's added on that St. Louis is sending $20 million. So that makes more sense. I do like this move for the Red Sox. People are going to say I've seen a lot of they gave up too much, but let's be honest. They had to give up Brandon Clark, their 5th best prospect, who now turned. Why? People are going to say, yeah, is he really worth that? Because you didn't want to pay $35 million for Sonny Gray. So to get the Cardinals to throw in that extra $20 million, you had to go out there. You had to spice up the deal a little bit more. But now that kind of, before we wrap up this conversation completely, it brings us to really the main point of this show, where we are going to sit down and talk about some of the teams, and maybe not just so the teams, some specific players on those teams that they're starters that, hey, they could be available and they could be on the move this very off season. So if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Ryan Ripken Show, live at 5. And speaking of, can we get a thumbs up if you are ready, semi-ready? Yeah. We got Ryan on the go. We welcome to the show. Welcome to the Ryan Ripken Show. Ryan Ripken. Ryan, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm well. This is traveling in rain is probably, I know snow causes more problems, but when it rains, people don't know how to drive. They just don't. It shuts down. Then you factor in that it's around the holidays and you're like, you know what? This is a disaster. But you know what? I got to my destination. I'm back, but I'm sorry I can't be right at the computer being able to chop it up. But yeah, Zach, I mean, we'll just dive right into it because people got things to do. It is the holiday time. And the theme, though, is trades. And if you're not going to acquire a player in free agency, well, then you can go out and get a guy. That's what the Red Sox did. And they felt like this was a good price of which they got Sonny Gray. I heard you talking about it. I'm with you. I like the move. You get $20 million to help eat the contract. I'm buying Sonny Gray to be better in 2026. And once again, the Red Sox are looking like a team that's going to be very competitive. Question's going to be, who's next? Who is going to be next up? So I think, Zach, we got a few options that we're going to run through real quick.
Yeah. Let's run through a few options, and I see people talking about it in the chat. So let's start with the first team in the AL Central that it feels like has been linked to every starting pitching needed team over the past 12, 24 months at this point. So we will start off with the Minnesota Twins, and I guess we'll start with, I don't know if he's the prized guy because I see these two as very similar, but we'll start with Joe Ryan. we'll start with Joe Ryan. I'll bring up his Baseball Savant page so people can see his last 3 years of work, his 5-season total, and then his percentile rankings across Major League Baseball. But Ryan, off the bat, Joe Ryan, a guy that kind of is expected, he or the guy we'll get into in a few moments, Pablo Lopez. One of those guys was kind of expected to go over the deadline. We're now in the offseason. It feels like one for sure will be moved. Thoughts on Joe Ryan?
Look, Joe Ryan is a stud. That dude had an Invisa fastball in AAA when I saw him last. But what he's developed since then, he got traded in the Nelson Cruz trade. If you guys remember back, that's what sent him to Minnesota from the Rays. He's become a frontline guy. You mentioned that before, Zach, about frontline. Joe Ryan's a frontline guy. He's a guy you can build around as a staff. I think his best years are ahead of him. But I think that the Twins recognize that the best years are ahead for Joe Ryan. So of the options, his price point's going to be really high. Why? He's a guy that's gotten better control of his secondary stuff. He seems to be reliable and dependable. And it would take a haul because the Twins, if you're looking at players that you want to build around, he's one guy that I would want to build around, Zach. So I think Joe Ryan, of all the price points, he's got to be leading in that. And it's going to have to take, I'm not going to say king's ransom, but I think it's going to have to take such an enticing offer with so much upside from maybe a prospect standpoint to really persuade the Twinkies to ship off Joe Ryan to which would be a contending team.
Yeah, I mean, and when you look at it, Joe Ryan, after the 2026 season, he has 3 years left. He has 2026 and then is ARB eligible for the next 2 years. So not only is this a guy where you look at it and you say, hey, you know what you're going to get. You know you are getting a solid player, especially I would put him in that probably high 2 conversation. Maybe he's not the ace of your squad, but he definitely is a guy that is going to produce for you. You get him for 3 seasons. Yeah, there's a reason that the Twins are not just giving him away. You know, I see so many times we see guys on the trade market and it's like, why don't they just, why haven't they traded him yet? Like they have to get rid of this guy. Why haven't they? When you're in a position like this, it's not like his contract's expiring and as the days go by, the value loses. This is a guy who he's in his prime. You know what you're getting from Joe Ryan, especially when healthy. And yeah, I agree. This is a guy who's pitched in 161.2 innings in 23, 135 in 24, 171 in 25. So definitely he's out there. You know you're going to get him for over at least 134 innings. And yeah, if there's a guy out there, it feels like Joe Ryan. I don't know if he's the frontline guy on the trade market because obviously I don't think we're going to get into them today because we went over them a few shows ago with, Cabrera and Alcantara in Miami. But Joe Ryan is definitely up there. He is definitely, if he's not 1, he is 2, I think, on the market at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. I think if he was a free agent, I like looking at it that way. If Joe Ryan was a free agent, where would you factor in? And to be honest, he might get factored in as the top right-handed arm. Zach, he probably is. In my book, Joe Ryan would easily be that, and then you have to have the conversation over, well, who do you like better? Do you like Framber Valdez or do you like a Joe Ryan? Like, what do you prefer? 2 different pitchers, lefty, righty, obviously, but that's the conversation that's at hand. Overall, I think it's unrealistic unless it's a king's ransom. But the other pitcher in Minnesota with Pablo Lopez. Now, to me, Pablo is a lot more realistic of a target, given just where he is in it, a little bit the trajectory of it. I think Pablo Lopez has great stuff, power fastball, dealt with a little bit of injury in the past. But I think of the two, the Twins would be willing to move Pablo more than they would Joe Ryan, especially seeing that, yes, 3 years, but you're going to have to pay Joe at some point if you like him. Pablo already had that extension.
Yeah.
You know, if you believe in him for the future, it's going to be a good price. So
Yeah.
we'll
So
see how that
Pablo
all pans out.
Pablo is 2 years because of his arm injury. He is a free agent in the 2028 offseason. So he has 26 and 27 under contract. So maybe you also get a little bit, two guys the exact same age, 29. Two very, very reliable guys. Obviously, I just brought up, yes, Pablo's coming off the arm injury. He had a little bit last year, but before that, in 23, pitched 194 innings. 24, he pitched 185. He is what feels like, I think, let's go specifically a Baltimore right now. I think he slides into your number 3 spot in Baltimore behind Rodgers, behind Bradish. Maybe you're obviously seeing if Rodgers can reproduce what he did in 2025. But if Pablo Lopez, a guy like this, he's another guy that I put in that he is a 2, and if he suddenly becomes your 3, that is a very, very nice rotation that you have. Pablo Lopez is a guy that if you called all 29 other teams and were like, hey, would you want Pablo Lopez? That they're ready. Even if I would be hard pressed to find a team that would not want Pablo Lopez on their team, and maybe even in a lot of cases leading their rotation. For me, we'll use the same thing. If you want to go, where would he be in free agency? I have him above Gallen. I have him above Cease. I'd have him probably above Michael King. He's just a guy that he's always been such a solid, reliable guy to have in the rotation that, yeah, I think he's there as well.
For sure. And sorry, Zach, you can still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Just my camera and getting a call because I'm Mr. Popular. But overall, I heard what you were saying with Pablo. The Twins have a good problem that they have 2 really good arms. The problem is they don't have a team that's ready to win anytime soon. So with that being said, both those guys should be available, but above all, Pablo Lopez, to me, definitely the option that you would want to consider. But there are some other options out there, Zach.
Yeah, there are some other options. So let's keep this moving. And maybe the Orioles, maybe they don't want to have a trade candidate have to fly super far. Maybe just take the Parkway, your favorite, up to Baltimore. Maybe not a guy out there that he's being shopped. We know they're listening to offers, but Mackenzie Gore of the Washington Nationals coming off, yes, I know people are going to look, in 2025, he had a 4.17 ERA. Oh, his best year was a 3.9 in 24. Maybe not anything that jumps off the stat sheet to you, but when you watch Mackenzie Gore go to work, he's a guy that I think would be a very welcome addition, especially as a lefty to a rotation like Baltimore, where, hey, this is another one, 26 years old. It's going to cost you a lot. This is not going to be, hey, send whether it's the 15th rated prospect or whatever it is. This is someone that, we talk about having a king's ransom. It's going to take a lot. This is not someone that the Nationals are just giving away. He has 3 more years under contract. So all these guys we've talked about are not just 1-year rentals. And that means that if you want a guy, especially at 26 years old, that has been shown to be a high potential guy, you have to give up. You want to get talent, you have to give up talent. This is another one that goes and you look at and say, okay, it's going to be a lot, but is that worth it to upgrade the position, the starting rotation? Because this is an upgrade for the Orioles and for a lot of rotations. Once again, if you slide Mackenzie Gore into that 2-3 slot in your rotation, you've got something good going on.
I mean, Zach, you know how I feel about Gore. I'm enamored with him. I love his stuff. It's nasty. It plays up. I know the inconsistencies when you're a young pitcher, and the walks can get up for him. The pitch counts can get up there, but overall stuff, wipeout stuff, you take chances on, and his build that he has, he can become an ace. He can become dominant. And for stretches he was dominant in 2026 or 2025, right? So
Yeah.
the Nats, though, I'm just trying to figure out with them why. I think the Nats are a lot closer than maybe they think they are. But why would you want to trade away a guy that I think would be a massive anchor for you moving forward? But maybe you do want the reset, and he's not one of your guys. You got a new front office, new manager, and it can kind of be a clean slate, and you build around James Wood.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. If that's the case, if I was Baltimore, yeah, you know who the guy I would really pursue. If we think Joe Ryan, I think for what the Twins would want would be too high. I think Gore's price tag would be high, but I think the Nationals might be willing to take more of those upside prospects more than any other team, if we're going to be honest. And that's where some of these Orioles young pitchers, I think the Orioles would have enough to offer him. I think I would hate to see another team in the AL East go and get him, but I think he'd be the number one. If we were ranking it, Joe Ryan and Mackenzie Gore would probably be right there at 1A, 1B for me.
Yeah.
And I would lean, if you're lefty dominant, I would still lean taking a risk on Gore than going out and signing Framber Valdez. That's personally my opinion.
And just also because of the contract and stuff, you're going to have to pay Valdez. Now, yes, with arbitration, Gore is going to get decently expensive, but he's not going to be making $30 million a year through arbitration. That's not going to happen. So, yeah, for me, Mackenzie Gore is definitely up there. I think he's a guy, and like you said, you would hate to see him go to another team in the AL East. I do think with the new management coming in for the Nationals, like you said, I think that gives it a possibility because they want to build around James Wood, Dylan Cruz, Robert Hassel. Like they have these young guys that are coming up and kind of, yes, Gore came over in the Juan Soto trade, but James Wood and them have kind of taken off as the centerpieces to this team. Would not be surprised at all if this Nationals new front office and management goes, hey, we don't think that we are going to be competing for a World Series in the next 3 years with Mackenzie Gore on our squad. Let's trade him at the value height. Yes, he could get better and the value could go up, but this is, if you can get 3 or 4 young, good players with high potential, it would be hard for me to see the Nationals saying, hey, in the state we're in right now, we don't want high potential guys. We don't want more players that can help us down the line, because I do think Mackenzie Gore falls into that awkward category right now where maybe in 20, so he's available for 26 and 27, so 2 years, sorry. I'm not sure if in the next 2 years the Nationals are competing enough, and Mackenzie Gore is a Boris client. I'm not sure that lines up well for the Nationals to keep him long term. I think this is the perfect opportunity for them to get as much as they can for him and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, Gore's going to cash out at some point, and Scott Boras death taxes, and he's going to bring in a large sum of money or piss off a lot of people in the process. So, yeah, the Nats, especially if they're in a pinch for how much money they want to spend, and if you were looking at James Wood as your franchise cornerstone, which I think he should be, if not, hey, bring him to Baltimore, just send him the Parkways. I rolled my eyes. I hate that strip of concrete. If I could wipe one freeway off the face of the earth, it would be the Parkway. That's how much it bothers me. But I digress. I mean, this is the part, though, of the off season where when you're looking at identifying the future and when you're talking about going all in, there's a risk reward to everything. And just going out and signing a free agent, it's a risk, just like it is making a trade. But what's the reward that comes with it. The trade pieces here, I'd say the safer ones, Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez, risk, but higher upside, Mackenzie Gore. And then you're kind of looking around, like the Sonny Gray deal, risk in my mind for the Red Sox. You give up a prospect, but low risk that this guy can be a 2 or 3 for your staff. Like that's the low risk. And if not, so be it. For these other guys, for the 3 that we mentioned, Gore, Lopez, and Joe Ryan, all the ability to be 2s or maybe 1s, depending on how they play out. So I'm excited to see it. But I mean, those are the 2 teams, obviously, that we're going to continue to eye. And the Cardinals, to me, it's going to be fascinating, Zach. It's not pitcher-wise, but the Cardinals are going to have to make some decisions here. And we know Arenado probably is going to be on the move. I'm just curious who else they're willing to sell, because that could just mess up the entire free agent market for teams. And some guys that you think teams wouldn't be in on, they might be, depending on who else is out there for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Cardinals, talk about an old team where they are going through a transition as well. They need to just get younger and build from there. So I definitely think Arenado is going to be gone. We'll see about Wilson Contreras and guys like that. But our final guy that we, are talking about, this is more of a stretch. Yes, we've heard him in rumors, but we wanted to talk about him. And just quick trigger warning, if you hate the color red, you're going to see a lot of it on this Baseball Savant. Hunter Greene. Ryan, I would send an a package that people are uncomfortable reading to get Hunter Greene, and that's what it is going to take, because Hunter Greene, let me get his contract up real fast so I can make sure. He's already gotten a extension. He is under club control with a club option through 2029. That means that you are getting him for 4 seasons. This is a guy that just talk about dominant stuff. Like, yes, we talked about the Sonny Grays where it's like, hey, doesn't have dominant stuff, but he knows how to pitch. He gets outs because he knows how to pitch. Hunter Greene is going to throw it by you and beat you that way, make you strike out, make you look stupid. 26 years old, 4 years of control. I mean, Ryan, I hate to say it, I would put together, everyone loves him. If you're talking, hey, Slater DeBrun, Dylan Beavers, does an Ike Irish get it? I know Esteban Mejia, high riser, a Nate George, a Boston Bateman, Trey Gibson, Michael Ferret. I would be okay with packaging 3 of those guys plus to get a Hunter Greene. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know if that's even enough, because this is a guy that if the Reds said we need 2-3 top 100 prospects to get Hunter Greene, I'd be like, it makes sense because he's that good. But man, the Cincinnati Reds, just an abundance of riches in that starting rotation. The amount of young, talented players that they have, obviously Greene, Lodolo, Abbott, Louder coming up, Chase Burns. I mean, all these guys under, I believe, 26 years old, and all of them really damn good. And hey, maybe this is something where the Reds, you give them a Beavers or someone that can plug in and help that lineup out a little bit more, and add on some more prospects. It would take a lot to get done, but talk about a guy that I'd be willing to do it for.
I mean, if he's available, truly available, you really push the envelope on it. You do. But on my mind, I'm thinking, why on earth would this guy be available? Like, why on earth would you want, if you're a Reds fan, especially the year that the Reds had, granted, they snuck in, but they made the playoffs. But you really just need a couple bats in that lineup. That pitching staff is nasty, especially from the starting rotation side. Why on earth would you trade away one of the best arms in the game? I especially with where you've gotten to, and you got Tito as a manager. if I was a Reds fan, talk about infuriating, pissed off, ticked off. Trading Hunter Greene, I don't care who they got back, and I don't care if it would help in the next 5 years. Cincinnati, you can be great this next year. The Central, to me, the Brew Crew are going to be there. The Cubs, it's kind of in flux. There's no reason for me to believe that the Reds can't make a playoff push again and be better and push for the division. But I don't see them doing that without Hunter Greene. I would trade one of the other arms. I would go out there and test the market there, because those other arms, like, they're kind of like the Mariners of the National League. They got some really good pitchers that are out there. You have options, but at the same time, you know, when the Mariners have talked about, I don't know who you would consider their ace at this point: George Kirby, Brian Wu,
I was gonna say,
Logan
at this
Gilbert.
point, I'd probably put Wu. I'd put Wu as their guy.
If Wu's their guy, would you say, you know what, we're going to trade our best guy? I'd say, well, no, why don't we trade one of those other guys that's pretty damn good, because we can get a lot. Why give up our best? And that's why I look at it for the Reds. Why would you give up your best if you think you can win? Because if you don't think you can win, it's going to tell your fans that. And then package-wise, Zach, I still don't even know what would work. I don't even know what would make sense. But if he is available, you throw the kitchen sink. Then if he is, you throw it. Everything in it. But I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that.
This is honestly a trade, and this is a trade where if it were to go through to Baltimore, the jaws would hit the floor. But I'm saying uncomfortable to the fact of, like, I wouldn't be surprised if a Jordan Westbrook was involved in it. Now, like, of that level, like, this is not just going to be.
It would have to take that.
Yeah. Like, this is not, hey, let's just send some prospects, hope, you know, that goes a long way. Like, no, the Reds are going to, if they're going to do this, they would have to get theirs. You know, this is a Jordan Westbrook plus a Dylan Beavers, probably, plus another prospect. You know, this is not a, hey, let's send a bunch of 19-year-olds in single A and double A and get this job done. The Reds would need a haul. That's why I said it would be a haul that people would be uncomfortable just simply reading to get Hunter Greene.
And then for that, how much does it take away from your club? Like, if I looked at other teams, looking at other partners that the Reds, you know, could possibly go with. Obviously, Baltimore makes sense because of where they are, you know. But if you wanted to go around the rest of the American League, Boston, like, they'll be in on that market for what they've done and what they've given up. The only thing is, like, they would have to give up Duran, who's been in the picture as, like, a trade possibility, but it would be Duran and another starting pitcher and some prospects. The Blue Jays, this could be crazy. It's going to take almost, like, I think it would probably be a little bit too excessive. They love you, Savage, but it's going to have to take one of those guys that double take. And, you know, the Yankees, I think, could pull it off if they wanted to. Spencer Jones is a big trade piece. Just depends on how much do you believe in the young outfielder to go out there and do his damn thing. He's unproven, but he's a trade chip if they want to do it. And, you know, they might have to trade away Luis. Like, and that's a big piece. Would you trade that away? I don't know. I would if I was New York.
I mean, if it's for Baltimore,
it would make them next year. The Yankees would be top contenders if they did the move.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, you know, thinking back on it, I'm going to put it out there. I think if the Orioles had to do it, I think the prospect package, or not even prospect package at this point, the package starts probably with the Jackson Holiday. You know, if I'm the Reds, I'm not just taking any old prospects. I want Jackson Holiday. I want, if we're talking about guys in the pros, I want a Jordan Westbrook, someone that can come in there. And yeah, it's probably would come to Jackson Holiday. Heck, they would probably, if you call them about Hunter Greene, if you're that bold, they're probably going to be bold enough to say, okay, what's Samuel Basallo's availability like? And when you sit there and go, whoa, we can't do that. It's how Reds fans are sitting here talking about Hunter Greene. So if you want talent, especially this kind, you're going to have to make an uncomfortable offer that it's a risk. You know, it wouldn't just be a 1-for-1. I know that's been the big thing this offseason for some reason. This isn't a 1-for-1 type thing. you're probably giving them 4 or 5 players, with upside.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, if any GM that makes this move, they're putting their stones on the table. Like they are, and they're rolling the dice. And again, it's not that Hunter Greene isn't that dude. It's just you got to hope he stays healthy, and you are mortgaging a big part of your future. But in this case, some teams, yeah, you can be desperate for a guy that has team control, that throws absolute fuel, and can be an absolute difference maker in your rotation if your ultimate goal is to win the World Series and win it now. You don't care about 5 years, you care about now. I just think the Reds would be dumb to do it. I think you'd piss off your fans more. I'd rather go and spend the money and try to get a Schwarber and another that than do that to your fan base, because I think that the Reds sneaky, and especially with another year with Tito as their manager, and if Ellie De La Cruz can continue to cut down on his swing and missing, they have some pieces there that can be really damn good. So hey, you know what, Zach? This ain't the last time we're gonna have this conversation on pitchers, but at least that's our conversation for today.
Yep.
So hey, that was a good one. That was a good one.
Yeah. Just
Bump.
a quick, little bam, boom,
So I'll let you wrap up then, but I think that's what we got. And I appreciate all of you. We appreciate all of you. If you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Tomorrow's show, by the way, we might have a little bit of a different time.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit earlier in the day, to be honest, if we're going to do anything, just because the holidays, people traveling. No show Thursday or Friday because, be with your families, be thankful, make some bad decisions on some football choices. That's about it. So we appreciate you guys. Hit that like and subscribe button. Zach, I'll let you take us home. All right. I'll see you later.
Awesome. Have a good one, Ryan. We'll see you next time. So like you said, it's a little shorter episode today, just with all the chaos of the holidays and everything. So we'll be back tomorrow, a little bit before 5. We will keep you updated if you are in the Discord. I will also put out on Twitter and all of that. So we will keep you updated. So early on in the day, I'll be here anytime. But I appreciate you all and appreciate our friends over at Merit Club's Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals there. Go check them out. But appreciate all of you for tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. And we will see you tomorrow for another edition of the Ryan Ripken Show, live at 5, except for tomorrow. We'll be live earlier than 5. But we'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.